This title match is one of the most memorable in PBA history. It might have taken place 16 years ago, but it's still one of the most shocking moments in bowling we've seen televised. But is this also one of the worst breaks in bowling of all time? That's what I'm going to discuss in today's video. So make sure you're sitting comfortably and join me as we jump in the time machine and head back to 2009. It was January and the first singles event since the 2008 World Series of Bowling, which came at the end of the year. The PBA would start off 2009 with a mixed doubles event and then a very interesting tournament that was held at the legendary National Bowling Stadium in Reno. This was the National Bowling Stadium Championship, and it wasn't just a normal tournament. The PBA made an unprecedented move to up the stakes and really test the pros. This was the first time that multiple oar patterns were being used during a PBA tournament, and the two patterns being used throughout the tournament were the cheetah and the shark. And you have to say that the best players did rise to the top in this event. There were also some really big names who just missed the cut. These included Norm Duke, who finished in 6th, missing the cut by 16, Liz Johnson, Jack Jurek, Pete Webber, Tommy Jones, Mika Koivuniemi, Tom Hess, Robert Smith, Danny Wiseman, Chris Lochetta and Dave D'Entremont, rounding out the top 16. The top 5 players from the 5 seed were Bill O'Neill, Patrick Allen, Chris Barnes, Wes Malott and Walter Ray Williams Jr. It was set to be quite the telecast, and all of these bowlers were more than capable of winning the title. I don't like the term easy match because there's not really such a thing as an easy match, but when you look at the names, you knew each match was going to be very tough. Match number 1 saw the 5 seed Bill O'Neill face Patrick Allen. O'Neill would be considered the underdog here. Yes, he'd had a lot of experience on TV, but he had still not yet won a title. Meanwhile, Patrick Allen had been dominating throughout the 2000s, although the last time he won was in 2007 at the Lumber Liquidators Championship. As I mentioned, we had dual oar patterns being used, the shark at 44 feet on the left lane and the cheetah at 36 on the right. The first match took an interesting turn as Patrick Allen left a pocket 710 in the 7th, which was a problem because O'Neill was working on 3 strikes in a row, although he would leave a 10 pin followed by a 3 pin, which allowed Allen to strike in the 9th and first in the 10th to shut O'Neill out. O'Neill's quest for his first title would continue, although he finally got the job done later in 2009 at the Comedian Championship. You could see from the first match that the 2 different oar patterns were definitely making the players think. Match number 2, Allen played Chris Barnes, a very tough matchup as Barnes is such a master at making the right adjustments and would therefore be well suited to the dual pattern setup. The problem for Barnes was that Allen had a game to get lined up and he came out firing with the front 5. Barnes did settle into the match though, going strike, 9 spare, 9 spare, 3 in a row. Allen left back-to-back 10 pins in frames 6 and 7 and had a 19 pin lead. That lead would vanish though after Barnes threw 2 more strikes to take a 1 pin lead. Back and forth we went as Allen reclaimed the lead. Barnes would leave a bit of an unfortunate 7 pin from a high shot and he would miss this. Unfortunately, we'd seen these sort of TV issues from Barnes and it was a very costly open in the 9th. He did get all 3 in the 10th, but Allen just needed a mark and he struck. Barnes had played a very good game, but that 7 pin ultimately cost him. The final score was 267 to 236. Allen marched on to match 3, putting in a dominant performance, getting the front 7. He left a 6 pin for a 52 pin lead. Allen, being the only lefty now, was just dialed in, and after that 267 game, bowled a 268. This was just fantastic stuff from him, and he was just locked in on both lanes. Now we head to the title match, and Allen would need to take down the best in the game in Walter Ray Williams Jr. The scores did mellow a little bit in this game. Both players were leaving single pins, but Allen was just ahead by 13 as he headed into the 7th. He got a vital double in the 7th and 8th to increase this to 23, but Walter Ray wasn't going anywhere, striking in the 8th and 9th. Allen stepped up in the 9th and made probably his worst shot of the day, although you can forgive him for that considering how well he'd bowled all day. This bad shot left him the 3-4-7, which he did spare. Up by 10, he looked to miss slightly inside on Shark and left the 6 pin. He spared and then struck in the fill, finishing with a 225. It was another decent game from him, and it was just a lot tougher this game, I think, more of a grind. The strikes definitely didn't come as easy in this match. We now had an interesting situation as Walter Ray in the 10th needed 2 strikes to win. A strike and 9 spare would mean we had a tie. We've seen Walter Ray in these sort of situations many times, and he normally never disappointed. He got the first strike convincingly, but this was now the crucial shot. A strike for the win, 9 spare for the tie. Anything else? It was Patrick Allen who would win.
6 of his illustrious career.
No! Oh my God, that's a loser! He just lost the tournament!
What a way to end the match. Now, I asked the question earlier whether this was really a bad break. There seems to be a bit of a difference of opinion. Many will say that this was a bad shot and that Walter Ray just did not release it well, which is why it left an 8-10. When we analysed the previous shot and compared the two, we can see that the shot that struck was flush in the pocket and had so much more drive. When we look at the 8-10 shot, it's a lot straighter, a lot flatter, and look how much the ball deflects. It actually deflects almost over towards the 10 pin, so this wasn't a good shot even though it made the pocket. However, the reason I think that this is a bad break is that even though it wasn't the best shot, I still don't think it deserved to leave the 8-10. I think a 9 count would have been fair. Walter Ray mentioned about the pins being off spot, but without actually being there in his position right behind the pins, it's hard to say. It's likely, judging from how this ball went down the lane, that it wasn't a particularly good release. However, I still think this should have been a 10 pin all day long. If that had been the case, we would have had a tie and a roll-off. To lose this way after making the pocket was heartbreaking. And obviously now we have the hindsight, we're able to see how this ball rolled, how it hit the pins, and yeah, looking at it, it was really never a strike shot. However, I do think still that leaving the 8-10 from this shot makes it a really bad break. I think we should have been heading for a roll-off. And leaving the 8-10 on Cheetah is not something you would have expected. You would have thought if it was going to happen that it was more likely to happen on the Shark. Although you also have to say well done to Patrick Allen, because his performance all day was superb. He hardly put a foot wrong and maintained the lead throughout most of the title match. He got through 3 very tough matches and had a 4-game average of 244, which on 2 patterns against that sort of competition was extremely impressive. Walter Ray may not have won title 46, but a few months later he would do at the start of the 2009-2010 season when he won the Motor City Open, and title 47 would be his last on the main tour, coming at the 2010 USBC Masters. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Let me know what you think. Do you consider this to be a bad break because it left the 8-10? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And also, if there's any other matches that you'd like me to break down just like this one, then please let me know. That is going to bring us to an end of this video. I really hope you all enjoyed this one. And if you have, I'd really appreciate it if you would hit the subscribe button below. Well, that is going to do it from me for today. And as always, thank you, bowling fans, and see you all next time.